When you hear the name Martin Luther, what are the things that come to mind? Civil rights? Racial segregation? Black Lives Matter? And if you're American, maybe a holiday in January? If these are the things that popped in your head, you may have Martin Luther King Jr. in mind. When you ask the general population anything about Martin Luther, the first thing that may come to their minds is the American civil rights leader who fought against racial segregation in the 1960s. What many may not know, the Nobel Peace Prize winning activist Martin Luther King Jr. was actually named after Martin Luther, an equally influential personality in the 1500s. Michael King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s father, was inspired by the life and work of Martin Luther that he decided to change his and his son's name to the latter's. Is there some magic in the name Martin Luther that it produced two very influential personalities in the world? The original Martin Luther was in fact so influential that he was able to provide the catalyst for the split of Christianity to different branches at the time when the hold and influence of the Catholic Church in the world was very strong. And that is not a small feat, right? In this video, we will take a quick look at the life of the OG Martin Luther and see how he influenced the birth of Protestantism. Martin Luther was born in Germany on November 10, 1483 to Hans and Margaret Luther. Despite coming from a peasant family background, Hans was able to succeed as a miner. He furthered his success as a businessman in the mining industry. Just take note of this fact because it may come in handy to explain a part of Martin's story later on. So it is not surprising that the young Martin was able to go to the best schools in Germany. As early as 13 years old, Martin already developed interest in monastic life when he attended a school that was run by a religious community, the Brethren of the Common Life. He was influenced by the teachings in the school about personal piety and was considering a life as a monk. I wonder if a monk was invited to the school's career day. When Martin's father knew about this, bells and whistles were triggered. Since his father had another dream for his son, he transferred Martin to another school to redirect his path to become a lawyer. Martin eventually studied the typical curriculum like grammar, arithmetic, philosophy for his education at a premier university in Germany. And in 1505, Martin earned his master's degree from the same school. All the same year, Martin was placed in a dramatic and heart-pounding situation that changed the direction of his life. Martin got caught in a violent thunderstorm. You could just imagine how tumultuous that storm was for him to fear for his life. And that fear was very valid, as a lightning bolt nearly struck him. Unfortunately, he did not turn into Shazam. The lightning, though, was seen by Martin as a sign from God and scared the bejesus out of him. In his moment of fear and weakness, he called out to Saint Anne. Of all the saints that walked the earth, why Saint Anne? It could very well be that she was a patron saint of miners. Remember the fact shared earlier? Martin asked for the intercession of Saint Anne to save him from the thunderstorm, and in exchange, he promised to become a monk. And lo and behold, the storm eventually subsided and he survived unscathed from the incident. Most historians do not believe this was a spontaneous act from Martin, and that decision to become a monk has already been brewing before the miraculous intercession happened. Remember, he was already entertaining this idea early on in his life. True to his words, Martin turned his back on his studies to become a lawyer and entered the Augustinian monastery on the same year, despite the great disappointment from his father. Imagine all his efforts to redirect Martin's life just to be reverted because of a storm. While in the monastery, Martin pursued an education in theology and eventually earned his doctorate and professorship in 1512. His continued studies on theology opened his mind to ideas and realizations that would eventually impact Christianity and the Catholic Church for years to come. When Martin was 27 years old, he became a representative to a conference created by the Catholic Church in Rome. While there, Martin's eyes were opened and witnessed firsthand the corruption and immorality of Catholic priests. Martin's disdain with the Catholic Church grew as major events in the 16th century were unfolding. In the early 16th century, translations of the Bible and the writings of early church philosophers like St. Augustine became widespread and easily accessible. This meant that the church no longer had monopoly of information regarding the Christian faith. Think of it like the time when information became easily available for us in the internet. The more information we have, the more opinions we can form. The eventual democratization of knowledge about the Bible and Christianity led to some theologians and scholars to question the dogma of the Roman Catholic Church at that time. They saw inconsistencies in what was written in religious texts with what was actually practiced at that time. One practice of the Roman Catholic Church which contradicted St. Augustine's view was on which one had the ultimate religious authority. For the Church, the final authority regarding religious matters was with the church officials. But for St. Augustine, the ultimate authority resided with the Bible. Another practice of the Church which contradicted St. Augustine's writings was on how salvation can be achieved. In the Middle Ages, the Church believed that salvation can be achieved through acts that would please God. In other words, sins may be forgiven by doing pious acts. Augustine believed otherwise. For him, salvation and forgiveness of sins cannot be gained by human acts. Augustine, in his writings, espoused that it is only God who can give salvation and forgiveness through His divine grace. During Martin's time, the Catholic Church's practice of granting salvation and forgiveness to sinners through indulgence became a corrupt practice by church officials. The selling of indulgence became a money-making scheme to fill up the church coffers. Indulgence selling eventually became banned in Germany, but despite the prohibition, indulgence selling for profit still continued unabated. In fact, a friar named Johann Tetzel sold indulgence in Germany to apparently raise funds for the renovation of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Martin detested the corrupt practice of selling indulgence since he believed St. Augustine's idea that salvation was only through faith and through God. Church indulgence cannot substitute for these. This led him to write the Disputation on the Power and Efficacy of Indulgences, or popularly known as the 95 Theses. The first two theses lay down Martin's main points, that 1. God intended sinners to repent, and 2. Faith and not deeds would lead to salvation. The rest of the theses were direct criticisms of the corrupt practice indulgence selling. Can you guess how the Catholic Church reacted to this? The Church, of course, took so many efforts to condemn Martin's writings and coerce him to recant his ideas that were deemed heretical. This should not be surprising since Martin's writings were actually claiming that the church officials did not have authority and that their practices were wrong. Martin was summoned by the church to defend his ideas, but Martin refused to recant his statements. The Pope issued a papal bull. This is like a public decree or proclamation that Martin's writings were scandalous and not fit to be heard by pious Christians. The church gave Martin the opportunity to again recant his statements, but Martin again refused. In the church's last-ditch effort to quell Martin's ideas that for them were heretic, Pope Leo X excommunicated Martin from the Catholic Church in January 3, 1521. So did the excommunication put a stop to the public criticisms of the Catholic Church? The answer is no. Martin's writings eventually sparked the Protestant Reformation in Europe, which eventually led to the fractionalization of the Catholic Church. His teachings about the source of religious authority and about salvation through faith led to the formation of the core beliefs of Protestantism today.